The galaxy was quiet that night, at least from the point of view of the colony on Vera 4. It was a world known for its calm rivers, soft winds, and fields of silver grass that reflected the light of its twin moons. The people of Vera 4 were scholars, artists, and healers. They were not soldiers. Their colony was never meant to fight a war. It was supposed to be a place of peace, far from the conflicts of the larger galaxy. But peace did not last. The sky broke open with fire when the Marauders came. Their ships were jagged and sharp, like pieces of broken glass glued together with rage. The people of Vera 4 had no fleet strong enough to stop them. Their own patrol ships were light vessels, built for scouting and delivering supplies, not for standing against warlords who thrived on destruction. The first attack fell on the outer settlements. The Marauders swept down, stealing what they wanted and burning what they left behind. Entire farms were destroyed in minutes. The peaceful colonists could only watch in horror as the smoke rose and the night became red. In desperation, the leaders of Vera 4 gathered in their central council hall, a domed building of crystal glass. Their voices shook as they argued over what to do. Their only choice was to send a distress call. They all knew the truth. They could not protect themselves. The distress beacon was ancient, a relic of the Federation they belonged to. It was designed to reach far across the stars, to cry out for help when no other option remained. The leaders activated it, their hands trembling. A single message was sent again and again across the void. Vera 4 under attack. Assistance required. Any allies, please respond. Hours passed, then a day, then 2. No answer came. The leaders stared at the empty sky, waiting for ships that never arrived. The Federation had promised unity, had promised that no colony would ever stand alone. Yet now, in their hour of need, silence was all they received. The Marauders grew bolder, raiding deeper into the colony, enslaving workers, and laughing at the cries of the people. The council began to lose hope. "No one is coming," one elder whispered, her eyes wet with grief. "We are forgotten." And then, on the third night, the stars shifted. A single ship dropped out of hyperspace above, Vera 4. It was small, far smaller than the Marauder cruisers that darkened the skies. The colonists watched in disbelief as it cut through the night and descended, flames trailing from its engines. The Marauders saw it too. They laughed. One ship against their fleet? A foolish act. They prepared to destroy it, confident that nothing could threaten their rule. But the small ship was different. It did not flee, and it did not hesitate. It flew straight toward the largest Marauder vessel, weaving through their fire like it had been born inside the chaos of battle. Its guns flashed with precision, striking engines and weak points that only a veteran could know. One Marauder ship spiraled down in flames before the colonists even realized what was happening. The colonists gasped. Could this be the help they had prayed for? The small vessel landed outside the capital city, its hull scarred from battle but intact. The colonists gathered in fear and awe, whispering among themselves. The ship's ramp lowered with a hiss of steam. Heavy boots struck the ground one by one. They were humans. Every colonist froze. They had heard the stories, the whispered name that moved through the stars like a shadow. Humans were from a world known as Earth, a death world, one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. Everything on Earth wanted to kill, from the smallest microbe to the storms that split continents. To survive there, one had to be strong, clever, and unyielding, and now the Deathworlders had come. The leader of the human group stepped forward. His armor was scratched and old, not polished like the ceremonial gear of the Federation guards. His face carried scars, the kind that told stories of battles won and survived. His eyes were sharp, but when he spoke, his voice was calm. "We received your call," he said simply. "We came." The colonists stared at him in disbelief. Only a handful of humans stood behind him, carrying weapons and supplies. There were no fleets, no mighty armies, just a small group of soldiers who looked like they had walked straight out of the legends. One of the colonist elders finally found her voice. "But why you? Where are the others?" Where is the Federation fleet? The human leader looked at her with a mixture of pity and firmness. No one else answered, but we did. That is enough. The words struck like a blade through silence. For a moment, the colonists could only stand frozen. These humans, with their rough armor and steady eyes, had come when no one else had. A young colonist stepped forward, his voice trembling. There are hundreds of marauder ships. You are only a few. You cannot possibly stop them. The human leader did not flinch. Maybe not, but we don't run from fights like this. You called for help. We came. That means we fight together. The colonists exchanged nervous glances. Together? The word sounded strange. They had always believed themselves too fragile, too unskilled in war, but the humans looked at them not as weaklings, but as allies. The colonists did not know it yet, but that night would be remembered for centuries. Not for the fall of Vera 4, but for the day when Deathworlders answered a cry for help and stood in the place of giants who had remained silent. For now, the colonists only knew one thing. They were no longer alone. The human soldiers spread through the city, studying the terrain, pointing out choke points, bridges, and defense lines. Their movements were confident, their eyes alert. They spoke to the colonists not like rulers but like comrades. They asked for help gathering supplies, moving children to safer shelters, and mapping the outskirts of the colony. The colonists, still shaken, followed their directions. And slowly, for the first time since the marauders had arrived, a spark of hope flickered inside them. Above them, in the endless black of space, the marauders gathered their fleets once more. They had no idea that their greatest battle was about to begin. And at the heart of it all, the humans stood waiting, Deathworlders who had answered when no one else would. The next morning, the sky over Vera 4 was heavy with smoke. The colonists walked the streets of their capital with tired eyes, carrying water to put out the fires that still burned from the last raid. Their voices were hushed, filled with fear. Every sound from the horizon made them flinch, worried the marauders would return at any moment. But inside the council hall, the mood was beginning to change. The humans had taken over a corner of the building, spreading maps and marking positions, with stones and scraps of metal. Their leader stood over the table, pointing out the colony's weaknesses. You have open plains here, he said, tapping the map. That's where they'll land their ground forces. And this ridge, if we set up a line there, we can slow them down. Your city has choke points, but you're not using them. We'll change that. The colonists watched, fascinated. They had never seen war planned like this. Their own guards were ceremonial, trained more for parades than for battle. But these, humans, everything about them carried the weight of survival. One colonist, a young woman named Salar, raised her voice timidly. You speak as if you've fought marauders before. The human leader gave her a small smile, though his eyes were sharp. Not marauders. Worse. The room went silent. None of the colonists asked what could be worse. They could feel the truth in his tone. The humans split into teams, moving quickly. Some began setting up barricades in the streets using whatever materials they could find. Others inspected the colony's power systems, rerouting energy to strengthen the city's shield generators. A few taught colonists how to carry supplies, how to keep low if the fighting reached the streets, and how to protect their children. The colonists listened carefully. At first, their hands shook, but the calm way the humans explained each step gave them courage. For the first time, they felt they were not simply victims, they could play a part. That night, the marauders returned. Their ships came like black thunder, sweeping through the sky with glowing weapons. Colonists ran to the shelters while the humans stood ready. The first blast hit the city's shield. It flickered, bending under the weight of the attack. Fear spread through the crowd, but the human leader shouted above the noise, "Hold the line. The shield will hold." His voice was not uncertain. It was command, steady and unshaken. The colonists gripped each other's hands, repeating his words. The shield will hold. The marauders began their ground assault. Drop ships roared through the air, landing beyond the ridge. Metal doors opened and warriors in dark armor poured out, their weapons shining with cruel energy. They moved with confidence, expecting another easy victory, But this time the humans were waiting. From the ridge, the first trap was sprung. The humans had lined the slope with improvised explosives made from fuel cells and mining charges. As the marauders advanced, the ground erupted in fire. Half their formation broke instantly, stumbling back in confusion. The colonists watching from the city walls gasped. They had never seen the marauders pushed back. For once, the attackers were the ones caught off guard. The human soldiers charged. They were only a handful, but they moved like shadows, quick and relentless. Their weapons spat fire, dropping marauders one after another. They did not stand in neat lines like ceremonial guards. They fought with movement, with unpredictability, turning the battlefield into chaos. One human leapt onto a marauder vehicle, throwing a grenade inside before diving off. The explosion lit up the night, and the colonists cheered despite themselves. Sailor, standing near the council hall, whispered, "They fight like they've done this all their lives." Beside her, an elder nodded slowly. "Perhaps they have." The marauders regrouped, pushing harder. Their numbers were still overwhelming. Their warlord, a towering brute with jagged armor, roared orders from the dropship. The humans were outnumbered, but they did not falter. The human leader raised his weapon, shouting to his team, "Hold them here. Make every step cost them," and they did. Every corner of the ridge became a battleground. When their weapons overheated, the humans used knives. When ammunition ran low, they grabbed fallen marauder rifles and turned them against their owners. Their armor was scratched and broken, but their eyes burned with determination. The colonists could hardly believe what they were seeing. These humans were not superhuman. They bled, they stumbled, but they never stopped. Every time it looked like the line would break, one of them would rise again, pushing forward. The marauders began to hesitate. Their advance slowed. They were not used to resistance this fierce. To them, colonists had always been weak, easy prey. But these few humans were fighting as if they carried an entire army within them. In the city, the colonists felt something shift, hope. For the first time in days, they believed survival was possible. Inspired by the humans, some even began carrying supplies to the fighters, bringing water and extra energy cells. A few younger colonists joined the barricades, handing out weapons taken from fallen marauders. The battle raged until dawn. Finally, the marauder warlords signaled retreat. Their dropships lifted back into the sky, leaving behind wreckage and smoke. The humans staggered back to the city, their armor scorched, their faces marked with exhaustion. Yet they walked with steady steps, heads high. The colonists rushed to meet them. Some wept openly, throwing their arms around the soldiers in gratitude. Others bowed deeply, whispering words of thanks. Seller stepped forward, her voice trembling. You fought them back. You actually made them retreat." Human leader wiped the dust from his brow. His eyes were tired but calm. "They'll return, stronger. This was only the beginning." The words should have brought fear, but instead they carried strength. If this handful of humans could fight an army and live, perhaps there was hope after all. That night, the colonists gathered around fires with the humans. They listened to the stories the soldiers shared, not of glory but of survival. Tales of storms that could tear cities apart, of beasts with teeth like swords, of forests where even the plants hunted. The colonists realized that to be human was to live with danger every day. No wonder they fought without fear. One elder leaned close to Sealer and whispered, "Now I understand why they are called Deathworlders. But perhaps it is not a curse. Perhaps it is their gift." And as the fires burned and the humans sharpened their blades, the colony of Vera 4 began to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could outlast the storm. The colony of Vera 4 woke to a strange feeling the next morning. It was not peace. The marauders were still out there, circling the skies, waiting for their chance to strike again. But for the first time since the invasion began, the people felt something they had almost forgotten. Courage. It came from the humans. The night before, they had stood against the marauders with a bravery no one had expected. They were fewer, weaker in numbers, and yet they fought as though retreat was never an option. Their determination lit a spark in the colonists' hearts. Now, as the sun rose over the silver fields, the humans were already working. They had no time to rest. Their leader barked orders with the same steady voice he had used in battle, and his soldiers followed without hesitation. The colonists gathered, curious, watching as the humans prepared defenses around the city. They used scrap metal from broken ships, farm tools, and even collapsed parts of buildings to make barricades. Nothing was wasted. To the colonists, these things were junk. To the humans, they were weapons. Seller, the young colonist who had spoken, to them the night before, approached one of the human soldiers. He was repairing a weapon, his hands moving with practiced skill. "You don't stop," she said quietly. "Even after fighting all night." The soldier gave her a short grin. "If we stop, we fall. That's the Deathworlder way." Sealer tilted, her head. "What does that mean? Deathworlder?" The soldier looked up at the twin suns. His eyes carried both weariness and pride. "It means we come from a world that never forgives weakness. On Earth, the storms can drown cities. The beasts can tear you apart, and even the plants can poison you. We had to learn to fight for every breath. We learned to adapt. We learned never to quit. Out here among the stars, it means we can stand where others would break." Sailor fell silent. She had heard the stories before, but hearing it directly from one of them made her chest tighten with awe. Nearby, the human leader was speaking to the Council of Elders. His voice was calm but firm. "You cannot wait for others to save you. The marauders will return, and they'll come harder than before. If you want to survive, you must fight beside us. We'll show you how." The elders shifted nervously. They were not warriors. Their hands were soft from writing scrolls and tending fields, not holding weapons. Yet the humans looked at them not with pity, but with expectation. Slowly, the training began. The humans started small. They showed the colonists how to build stronger barricades, how to dig trenches, and how to use the land to their advantage. They taught them how to move supplies quickly, how to hide children and families when danger came, and how to stay calm under fire. At first, the colonists were clumsy. Their hands shook, their steps stumbled. But the humans were patient. They did not laugh at mistakes. Instead, they corrected gently, guiding with steady hands and quiet words. Day by day, the colonists grew stronger. One afternoon, Sailor tried firing a captured marauder weapon. The kick of the gun nearly knocked her to the ground. She blushed, embarrassed, but the human beside her chuckled. "Not bad for your first shot," he said. Again. She lifted it once more, steadier this time. The blast struck the target, and the colonists watching cheered. For the first time in her life, Sailor felt powerful. Meanwhile, the human leader drilled the colony's young men and women in simple formations. He explained how to move as a group, how to cover one another, and how to retreat without breaking apart. His voice carried the weight of experience. "You don't need to be soldiers," he told them. "You only need to be survivors. Fight smart, not strong. That's how Deathworlders live." The colonists listened, their fear slowly turning into determination. As the training continued, so did the stories. Around campfires at night, the humans spoke of their home. They described jungles where venomous creatures lurked in the shadows, deserts where the heat could kill, mountains where avalanches swallowed entire villages. The colonists shivered, horrified. Yet the humans laughed as they told these tales, as though danger was just another companion they carried through life. One colonist whispered to another, "How can they laugh at such things?" The elder beside him replied softly, "Because to them, surviving is victory. Every day alive is a triumph." It was then the colonists began to understand. The humans were not fearless. They were afraid like anyone else. But they carried their fear differently. They turned it into fire, into movement, into strength. The marauders did not attack for several days, and in that time, the colony changed. The streets that once rang with cries of despair now echoed with the sound of hammers building defenses. The people who once cowered in their homes now stood taller, their eyes sharper. Children played with makeshift wooden swords, pretending to be humans driving back marauders. Hope had returned, but the humans knew better than to relax. One night, the leader called his soldiers together on the ridge outside the city. Sealer, curious, followed at a distance. She watched as they checked their weapons, adjusted their armor, and spoke quietly. "They're watching us," one soldier muttered. "They'll come soon," another replied. The leader nodded. His face was grim. "They'll test us again, and this time they'll want blood. Be ready. The colonists look to us. If we break, they break. But if we hold—" He let the sentence hang, but every soldier understood. Sailor shivered. The humans bore a weight she could hardly imagine. Yet none of them complained. They carried it with quiet strength. 2 nights later, the sky burned again. The marauder fleet descended larger than before. Their ships blotted out the stars, their weapons glowing red. The colonists rushed to their positions, gripping weapons with trembling hands. But this time, they were not the same frightened people as before. They had been trained. They had been inspired. And they stood side by side with Deathworlders. The first wave of marauders landed on the plains. Their warriors charged forward, laughing cruelly, expecting the colonists to scatter. Instead, a line of barricades erupted in gunfire. The colonists fired clumsily but bravely, guided by humans who shouted instructions. The marauders faltered, surprised. From the ridge, the humans struck again, weaving through enemy lines with speed and fury. They moved like storms, unpredictable and deadly. Every strike inspired the colonists, who fought harder. Sailor crouched behind a barricade, her weapon shaking in her hands. A marauder loomed before her, but before it could strike, a human soldier tackled it aside, fighting with bare fists until the alien fell. He glanced at her and grinned through blood. "Keep shooting." And she did. The battle roared through the night. The colonists fought, stumbled, rose again, and fought more. The marauders, once so confident, now faced resistance they had never imagined. At dawn, the battlefield was littered with smoke and wreckage. The marauders retreated once more, dragging their wounded back to their ships. The colonists stood in silence, staring at the rising suns. They were bruised, bloodied, and exhausted. But they were alive. Sailor looked around at her people. They were different now. Their eyes no longer shone only with fear. They carried pride. She whispered to herself, "We are learning the Deathworlder way." And she knew that whatever came next, they would never be the same again. The colony of Vera 4 was no longer the same place it had been when the distress call was first sent. Its streets, once soft with laughter and music, were now lined with barricades. The fields, once silver under twin moons, were now scarred by fire and smoke. Yet among the scars something had taken root: resolve. The humans had taught the colonists more than fighting. They had shown them how to endure, how to think like survivors instead of victims. And the colonists had listened. They had learned. But the marauders were not finished. High above the world, their fleet circled like hungry wolves. The last 2 defeats had angered their warlord. He was not used to resistance, and his pride was wounded. In his mind, a handful of humans had humiliated him. Such a thing could not be forgiven. So, he gathered his entire force. This would not be a raid, it would be an annihilation. The night sky over Vera 4 split open once more as dozens of marauder ships descended together, their engines roaring like thunder. Their weapons glowed brighter than before, a storm of red and gold lighting up the heavens. Entire hills shook as they landed. The alarm bells rang across the colony. Colonists rushed to their posts, gripping their weapons. Their hands were steadier, now than before, though fear still pressed heavily on their hearts. The humans stood at the front. Their leader raised his voice strong and steady. This is their biggest strike. They think we'll break. We won't. Today we show them that. This colony fights back. The colonists cheered, though their voices trembled. Still, they believed him. His words carried weight. The marauders came in waves. The first wave slammed against the outer ridge where the humans had set up traps. Explosions erupted, collapsing, part of the ground and swallowing marauder vehicles. Fire roared up into the night sky and screams echoed, but more came. Hundreds of marauders charged, their armor gleaming. They fired without mercy, pushing against the barricades. Sealer crouched. Behind one of the defenses, her weapon clutched tight. Her breath came fast, but she remembered the human's words. Keep shooting. She squeezed the trigger and bolts of energy flew into the darkness. Around her, colonists fought fiercely, shouting to one another, helping each other reload and move. The humans darted between lines, never still. They struck at weak points, cutting through enemy formations. Their movements were sharp, precise, every action filled with purpose. One human climbed onto a marauder walker, tearing open a hatch and tossing a charge inside. The explosion lit the battlefield, and the colonists roared with triumph. The war raged for hours. The marauders pushed harder, determined to crush the defenders. But the humans fought as if the chaos belonged to them. Their leader shouted orders, his voice carrying even over the roar of weapons. Fall back to the second line. Make them pay for every step. The colonists obeyed. They moved in tight formations, covering one another just as the humans had taught them. Even when the first barricade fell, the marauders gained little ground. Seller stumbled as a blast struck near her, sending her to the dirt. A shadow loomed over her, a marauder raising its weapon. For a heartbeat, terror froze her. But then a human soldier appeared, slamming into the marauder with all his weight. The two struggled, but the human's knife flashed and the marauder collapsed. The soldier turned to Seller, breathing hard. Up. No time to stay down. She nodded, her fear melting into determination. She rose again, weapon ready. As the night deepened, the marauders unleashed their largest assault yet. Dozens of dropships landed at once, spewing warriors onto the plains. Their warlord himself marched at the front, towering above his army, his armor glowing crimson. The colonists felt their courage falter at the sight of him. He was larger than any of them, his weapon like a burning spear, but the humans did not flinch. Their leader pointed toward the warlord. Cut off the head, and the beast falls. We take him down. The humans moved like hunters, weaving through the battlefield. Explosions lit the night as they struck at the marauders' flanks. The colonists, inspired by their example, pressed forward, shouting with defiance. The battle turned into chaos. Smoke covered the fields, fire burned along the ridges, and the sky shook with the roar of ships. But through it all, the humans advanced. Sailor found herself fighting beside one of them, her heart racing. She had never imagined she would face war like this, yet in the middle of it she felt alive. Fear and strength mingled inside her chest. The warlord saw the humans coming. He roared, his voice carrying like thunder. Deathworlders, you think you can defy me? The human leader faced him, eyes unshaken. We don't think, we know. The two forces clashed. The warlord swung his spear, knocking aside barricades and sending colonists stumbling. But the humans struck from all sides, moving faster than he could follow. Their weapons cut into his armor, their grenades shattered his guard. He staggered, roaring in fury. The colonists watched, holding their breath. The humans were not giants, not stronger than the warlord in body, but they fought with something else, a relentless will that did not break. Finally, the human leader leapt forward, his blade flashing. He struck deep into the warlord's chest, the impact echoing across the battlefield. The warlord roared one last time before crashing to the ground. Silence fell for a heartbeat. Then the marauders faltered. Their leader was down. Their courage cracked. The humans shouted, their voices carrying like fire. Push them back. The colonists surged forward, their spirits blazing. They fought with a fury they had never known, driving the marauders back step by step. The enemy, once so confident, broke. Ships lifted into the air, retreating into the night. By dawn, the battlefield was quiet. Smoke drifted over the plains, and the rising suns cast light over the wreckage. The colonists stood in stunned silence. They had survived again. More than that, they had fought, truly fought, and won. Seller dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face. But these were not tears of fear. They were tears of pride. The human leader stood at the center of it, all his armor scarred, his face marked with dust and blood. Yet his eyes were calm. He looked at the colonists, his voice steady. You see now, they can be beaten. You are stronger than you know. The colonists erupted in cheers. They surrounded, the humans lifting their hands in gratitude. Children clung to their legs, elders bowed deeply, and voices filled the air with praise. Sailor whispered softly, almost to herself, "This is what it means, to fight the Deathworlder way." And as the suns rose higher, the colony knew the tide had turned. The marauders had come to destroy them, but instead they had forged something stronger. Together with the humans, Veyra 4 had become more than a colony. It had become a symbol of resistance. The suns of Veyra 4 rose slowly over a battlefield still thick with smoke. The colony that once lived in fear now stood in stunned silence, staring at the wreckage left behind. The marauders' dead lay scattered across the plains, their ships broken and burning. For the first time since the invasion began, the sky was clear of enemy warships. The colonists had survived again, but this time they had done more than survive. They had fought. The humans stood at the edge of the ridge, their armor scorched, their weapons nearly ruined. Their bodies bore marks of the battle, yet they stood tall, their faces steady. They had carried the fight into the heart of the marauder army, struck down their warlord, and led the colony through fire. Sealer walked among them, her heart still pounding. Everywhere she looked, colonists were embracing one another, laughing through tears, speaking words of gratitude. Some fell to their knees in prayer. Others whispered stories already taking shape, how a handful of humans had faced an army and driven it away. The human leader turned to the colonists. His voice was not loud, yet it carried across the crowd. "This battle is over," he said. "But the war is not. The marauders will not forget this defeat. They may come again, or others may take their place. You must always be ready." The elders of the colony stepped forward. One of them, her silver hair glowing in the morning light, spoke with a trembling voice. "You saved us when no one else would. You fought for us when even our allies stayed silent. How can we ever repay you?" The human leader shook his head. "We didn't come for repayment. We came because you called for help and no one else answered." The words cut deep into the colonists' hearts. They realized then what truly set the humans apart. It was not their weapons, or their training, or even their strange strength from living on a death world. It was something else, something far simpler and far more powerful. When others turned away, humans stepped forward. That truth became the seed of a legend. In the days that followed, the colony began to rebuild. Fields were cleared of wreckage. Homes were repaired, and children once again ran through the streets. But everything felt different now. The people no longer carried themselves like victims waiting for rescue. They stood taller, voices stronger, spirits brighter. Sailor worked alongside the humans as they trained the colonists further. The humans showed them how to maintain weapons, how to guard the skies, how to watch for weaknesses in enemies. The colonists learned quickly, driven by a new fire within them. At night, the people gathered around fires, listening to the human stories. The soldiers spoke of Earth not with sorrow, but with pride. They told of hurricanes that could sweep away entire cities, of jungles alive with predators, of deserts where water was more precious than gold. They spoke of the struggle to survive every day, and how that struggle made them unbreakable. The colonists listened wide-eyed. They realized that humanity's greatest strength was not that they were the strongest or the smartest, but that they endured. They rose again and again, no matter how many times the world tried to break them. One evening, Seller sat beside the human leader. She looked at him with curiosity. "Do you ever grow tired of it? Fighting, surviving, carrying such burdens? He was silent for a long moment. Then he answered softly, "Of course. Every soldier grows tired. But we don't stop. Because if we stop, others fall. That's what it means to be human. That's what it means to be a Deathworlder." Seller nodded slowly, the words settling into her heart like stone. Weeks passed and the marauders did not return. Perhaps their pride was too broken, or perhaps they feared the humans would be waiting. Either way, the colony finally had peace. When the time came, the humans prepared to leave. Their ship, battered but still strong, stood ready at the edge of the colony. The colonists gathered once more, a great crowd filling the streets and fields. Children waved small flags they had painted, some with stars, others with crude drawings of humans holding swords. Elders bowed deeply, their voices filled with gratitude. Seller stepped forward, her eyes shining with tears. "You could have stayed away. You could have ignored our call like the others. But you came. You changed us. We will never forget." The human leader met her gaze. For the first time, a faint smile touched his scarred face. "Remember this, you were never weak, you only needed to believe it. We didn't save you, you saved yourselves, we just showed you how." With that, the humans boarded their ship. The engines roared, lifting them into the sky. The colonists watched until the vessel disappeared into the stars. Silence followed, but it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of respect, of awe, of understanding. The colony of Vera 4 was forever changed. They rebuilt their world not as helpless victims, but as survivors ready to face whatever came next. And whenever they told the story of those dark days, they spoke of the humans, the Deathworlders who had come when no one else would. Across the stars, the tale spread. Traders carried it to distant stations. Travelers whispered it in ports. Leaders in great halls frowned as they heard the words repeated again and again. A distress call went out, and only the Deathworlders responded. In time, the story became legend. Some told it with fear, warning of humanity's dangerous resilience. Others told it with admiration, praising their courage. But all agreed on one thing: humans were not to be underestimated, for they were the ones who stepped forward when others stepped back. They were the ones who stood unbroken in the face of impossible odds. They were Deathworlders, and the galaxy would never forget it.